And now, Associate Professor Paul Griffin, Senior Lecturer in Medicine and Director of Infectious Diseases at the University of Queensland. Paul Griffin, thanks very much for your time. Before we get on to the vaccine question, give me your expert view on where the New South Wales cluster is at. Are they on top of that?
I think they're still in a fairly precarious position, or they've brought in some good mitigation strategies that'll hopefully kick in and control that cluster. But of course, with now I believe it's 11 cases, that's enough people who have been in the community that if people don't do the right thing and we don't get on top of this, it could certainly expand more. So I think at the moment we've got a good trajectory, but it's certainly still a precarious situation.
New South Wales has taken a different approach to, if you look at the real world experience of Victoria and New South Wales, very different. Will this Delta variant stretch that New South Wales approach to the point where they might need to look at tougher restrictions in your view?
We know that strain is more infectious, but it still is transmitted the same way. So our mitigation strategies still do work. So we know masks reduce the prospect of transmission. We know the vaccine, although maybe a little bit reduced in how well it works, still does work though. So if we get those mitigation strategies right, we should still be able to control it. And the contact tracers there have demonstrated time and time again their capacity to control clusters like this. So I think at the moment I'd be still confident that they can control it.
Okay, well, that's good news. I'm happy to hear that optimism from you, Professor Griffin, today. Let's talk about the vaccine question now. And AstraZeneca, those in their 50s urged to get their second jab. An interesting scenario where Professor Kelly and others saying, look, this is minuscule, the risk, even more so on the second jab. Please go ahead and be fully inoculated.
Yeah, I completely agree with that advice. In fact, I'm under 50, had my first dose before the age recommendation changed and had my second dose last weekend with no problem. So we know this recommendation last week has caused some concern, but this really demonstrates the strength of our monitoring. The adverse events of this vaccine were observed in our country as well as globally, versus the risk in our country, of course, which is exceedingly low given our exceptional control. So we have the luxury, I guess, of being able to exercise an abundance of caution and make this change. And so I think it's the right thing to do. And we know that this blood clotting syndrome, this TTS, whilst rare overall, is exceptionally rare after the second dose. So I certainly agree people should have great confidence in getting their second dose if they've had their first.
And with the rollout more broadly, what's your assessment of where it's at? I know the states have been saying the Pfizer supplies haven't been forthcoming. That's hampering their rollout, that people want to get the jabs. Anecdotally, we're hearing that these outbreaks have prompted a surge in vaccines. What's your expert analysis of where things are at right now?
I think it's clear we're well behind where we'd like to be. And if we'd had a high proportion of our population vaccinated, the impact of all these clusters or these cases entering our community would be reduced. And our reliance on harsher restrictions like lockdowns and border restrictions would be less. So, we really need to get people vaccinated. We've had a lot of challenges that aren't our own doing, including particularly supply. But, we're getting close to having that alleviated. I would think we're going to get more Pfizer soon. We've still got AstraZeneca, and that's a great vaccine in the group we're using it. And hopefully soon we'll have some Moderna and Novavax. So I think the focus now needs to be on making sure we've got avenues to get those vaccines when they come out to everybody who wants one, and making sure people understand how important it is to get vaccinated so we can start to reduce some of these other restrictions.
And as you said, AstraZeneca is a great vaccine, very effective, but for some reason, and we know the clotting story is a rare one, but it's fostered some hesitancy. Do we potentially see a reverse effect, a positive effect, in fact, where many people in their 50s who might not have got the other jab will be keen to get the Pfizer inoculation?
I hope so. I mean, I think, again, this change is a strength of our ongoing monitoring. People should be very confident there. And, we're giving them access to the alternate candidate out of an abundance of caution. And we know both vaccines are very effective. And I think the key message here is just how important it is to get enough people vaccinated so that, these cases, when they do get out, are going to be significantly reduced in terms of their impact. And, I think it's also really exciting that we'll have some other vaccine candidates coming through as well soon.
So give us an update on what those candidates are, and are they as effective as the ones
So
that we've heard so much about?
the Moderna vaccine is another mRNA vaccine, very similar to Pfizer, I guess, and that's demonstrated great results in the real world experience, particularly in the likes of, for example, the United States. So that'll be one that we should hopefully have, I guess, by the end of the year. And the Novavax vaccine, which is a very different platform to the vaccines we've been using. It's a protein or subunit based vaccine. It started its journey in Melbourne. I did their phase 1 clinical trials just over a year ago, and that's looking very promising in the latter stages of their phase 3 trials. And we have a purchasing agreement to get over 50 million doses of that one. So when that comes online, that'll give us another option as well.
Professor Griffin, just finally, before you go, have you noticed this trend where, while we know that there's been criticism of a lack of advertising awareness campaign to say, look, these jabs are crucial, they're safe, get it done, that in fact these outbreaks, the silver lining has been that it has shaken people out of their complacency and actually boosted the vaccine rate?
Oh, I think it has. I mean, it's clear this virus will keep coming. It will keep coming back. And I think these small clusters highlight that, at least in those locations, but also more broadly. And, that what I expect to see over the coming years is we'll see new and emerging variants. We'll see clusters keep coming. We might even see a significant increase when we start to open up. But we need to be very confident in the tools that we have and make sure we use them to its fullest. And in that, I mean, we need to get as many people vaccinated as possible so we can get back to having some of those freedoms that having enough of the population protected should earn us.